Life Curriculum, learning to address impairment and fatigue to enhance patient safety.
No more of this. I've had it with this residency. This is the last straw.
Hey, you need to get a grip. We both need to get a grip.
If I don't get out of this miserable, this ageist, this... Ugh. Okay, so what's bugging you?
Hey, what's the problem?
I just had another run-in with the head nurse at 3 East. If she makes one more derogatory comment about residents, I'm gonna scream.
Just quit whining.
You're exhausted. I can see it. If you weren't so tired, you wouldn't be so thin-skinned.
God, my stomach's killing me. And I'm tired, and hungry, and poor. But not narcissistic. Totally fixated on my own problems. What's going on with you?
It's my dad. I went to pick him up from the nursing home on Saturday. He was going to spend the weekend with me.
Look, you people need to learn to balance the professional with the personal. This doesn't sound to me like you're doing much of a job of either.
I don't want to talk anymore. I'm exhausted too.
Well, welcome to the wonderful world of medicine, where all work and no pay and no say make Jack and Jill nervous and irritable, not to mention tense and angry. The answer to everything is bite the bullet.
Both of you'd better learn to deal with it and get back to work. Nothing here that a little time won't fix.
I gotta talk to my program director. As far as I'm concerned, the medical system's about life support. It's time for me to pull the plug. I'll catch you later.
Hey, hang in there.
As you might guess, there's a lot going on with these two residents. At first glance, this situation might not appear terribly important, but faculty and program directors and even other residents should take these types of comments seriously, especially if the doctors making them do so on a routine basis. Comments like these are rarely made lightly. On the other hand, it's important not to overanalyze. Sarcasm and humor, that is appropriate humor, are important coping skills. What needs to be identified is the pattern of behavior itself, habitual outbursts of unhappiness and discontent. These can easily be missed because of frequent faculty rotations. It is obvious that the attendant failed to recognize the seriousness of that interaction and therefore missed an opportunity to exert a little damage control. Let's back up and see how the incident might have been handled more productively.
I just had another run-in with the head nurse at 3 East. If she makes one more derogatory comment about residents, I'm gonna scream.
You sound pretty dejected, Ed.
You're exhausted. I can see it. If you weren't so tired, you wouldn't be so thin-skinned.
Yeah. God, my stomach's killing me. And I'm tired, and hungry, and poor. But not narcissistic. I'm not totally fixated on my own problems. What's going on with you?
It's my dad. I went to pick him up from the nursing home on Saturday. He was going to spend the weekend with me.
Why don't you two come in here? Sit down for a few minutes. Okay, so I understand that you're both dealing with things that are pretty normal for residents, but let's talk about them before they get the best of you. I've seen and heard you two talking about these things before. Have you spoken to anybody professionally about how you're really feeling? Joan, have you seen your advisor?
Not yet.
Look, I just finished meeting with your program director, so I know she's in her office. Why don't you go down right now and have a chat? This is important. You two should talk. Tell her what's bothering you and get some input from someone who knows you.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and Joan, I'd like you to let me know how your conversation goes. See me at the end of the day, okay? I don't need the details. I just want to make sure you two have connected and you have a plan.
Thanks.
Okay, Ed. Let's figure out what's going on and then decide on a course of action.
Both these residents manifest symptoms of burnout, which frequently begins under stressful conditions and might be interpreted as a career crisis. Burnout is defined as a syndrome that combines emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment or effectiveness. It can lead to depression and substance abuse, two outcomes that, along with stress, are covered in another segment of the LIFE program. A career crisis can take the form of doubt about specialty choice or even an aversion to continuing the practice of medicine. After reviewing this program, you should be able to understand, identify, and manage symptoms of burnout and career crisis. You should also be able to list the life challenges residents face that may contribute to a crisis, as well as to describe counseling strategies that may be of help.
Burnout typically occurs in professionals where employment conditions are characterized by prolonged stress combined with high performance expectations. These types of jobs are usually open-ended and are without any defined structure or limit to the amount of work involved. Because residents bring to the practice of medicine enormous dedication to both their patients and their profession, they are highly vulnerable. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, the line between profession and obsession is often blurred. Residents most likely to succumb to burnout are those with obsessive-compulsive personality traits, unrealistically high expectations, or who are workaholic. In those personalities, burnout stems from inability to balance work, rest, and recreation. In some cases, however, burnout can arise not from specific personality traits, but from the pressure of meeting escalating demands, the intense competition to do better, the drive to make more money, or the sense that one is being deprived of something one clearly deserves. The changing conditions of medical practice may account for the difference. Increasingly, the practice of medicine is becoming an uncertain and anxiety-provoking experience. Residents see deterioration in personal autonomy, an increase in patient workload, a reduction in financial remuneration, and a decline in respect. Perhaps worse, what was once a profession, a vocation, a calling, has become to many simply a business. Burnout may be even more prevalent in women. A nationally representative sample of nearly 6,000 physicians in primary care and specialty non-surgical care found that women physicians were 60% more likely than men to report burnout. For each additional 5 hours over 40 hours worked per week, the odds of burnout in women increased 12 to 15%. Additional pressures appear to play a role. Women physicians are more likely to experience sexual harassment. At home, they still bear most of the responsibility for managing domestic chores, and if they have children, the pressures are intensified. Unfortunately, there seems to be a dearth of role models or mentors for these young physicians. That is, older women doctors who have balanced their personal and professional lives successfully. Burnout proceeds in identifiable stages. Recognizing these stages may help to identify them early. The first, or honeymoon stage, is characterized by boundless energy and enthusiasm, a period where all things seem possible. During this phase, an individual loves the job, and the job, so the person feels, loves the person. All possible needs, desires, and problems will be met and resolved by the job. The pleasure of the job, the delight with coworkers, and the happiness engendered by the organization is palpable. During the awakening or second stage, the honeymoon experience fades and people begin to realize that their initial impressions were unrealistic. The job doesn't meet every need, and both coworkers and the organization appear to be less than perfect. Worse, rewards and recognition are few and far between. As disillusionment and disappointment grow, confusion reigns. Something appears to be out of place, although the individual may not be quite able to pinpoint exactly what that is. Typically, the person then works even harder to attain his or her goals, but working harder doesn't change anything. Boredom and frustration become commonplace, as do feelings of incompetence. At this point, the person so affected begins to lose self-confidence, direction, and passion. The third stage is brownout. The enthusiasm and energy once experienced now give way to symptoms that include chronic fatigue and irritability. Eating and sleeping patterns change, and indulgence in escapist behaviors such as drinking and using drugs can occur. Productivity falls off and work deteriorates.
Early identification of a career crisis in the making is essential. But one has to wonder if the problems that produce burnout and lead to such extreme dissatisfaction with the profession might not have been prevented in the first place before it reaches the end stage.
We know that overall, about 80% of physicians are satisfied with their choice of a career in medicine. However, about 20% experience either severe doubts about practicing medicine or have critical reservations about their chosen specialty.
In my experience, the factors that lead to career crisis arise from a contradiction between appearance and reality, expectation and actuality. And it is this, I think, that leads to unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and eventually burnout. How does this come about? First, many residents select a specialty in medicine because they think it will give them independence of action with respect to treatment approaches and allow them to have input into treatment decisions that affect patients. Because of that, they can take pride in both their professional growth and personal contribution. In this context, we need to remember that a passion, and I repeat, a passion for medicine is often driven by a tremendous altruism, the desire to impact and to make a real difference in a patient's life.
Residents, especially first-year residents, have very little authority or autonomy, but they have tremendous responsibility, a burden they never experienced as medical students, and it grows heavier with each program year. Heavy responsibility, combined with little control and long, arduous hours, even with the reduction in duty hours, that leave little or no time for personal life, well, you have a recipe for burnout and career misgivings. Residents often worry about these feelings. Are they a normal part of their training, or do they indicate more significant or substantial career misgivings?
The hours I work, they seem endless. And I never know if I'm doing anything right. I can't even catch up on the medical literature. Will these people ever stop writing? And then there's the contradictory directives. One attending tells me to do something one way, then another the opposite. It leaves me confused. Will I ever just get it right? And do you know what else? I have no life.
So how can programs respond? In our program on stress, we discuss the importance of a good orientation, the importance of connecting residents to one another and the community, of teaching coping skills, negotiation techniques, and, yes, conflict resolution. For starters, we can apply all of these to burnout.
Second, we can do a better job with mentoring by perhaps pairing a happy alumni of our residency program or a colleague in the community to help the resident learn what the real world is like. In other words, what professional life is like once residency training has ended.
There are other issues involved too. We all take professional satisfaction, which is crucial, for granted. We expect it. Some of the main sources of satisfaction residents derive come from relationships with their colleagues and other healthcare professionals. Unfortunately, these relationships are not always positive. Many report a lack of respect. This can be disheartening, even to the most impervious.
Mistreatment, verbal attacks, being belittled, and threatened about their careers also contribute to dissatisfaction and demoralization.
When I feel I'm being mistreated, belittled, and verbally attacked, and then I see faculty having the life I'm trying so hard to have, really makes me question where I'm going.
The attending last night, Dr. Enslow, told me I didn't respect him, so I tried to set things right. He told me not to answer back and to remember who gives me my reference. And all this in front of a patient. But you know what's really bad? Enslow hates what he does. He's miserable. What if I go through all this, put up with all this misery, and end up just like him? Man, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place.
Programs must have clear policies that protect residents from any kind of harassment by senior residents and faculty. It is simply unacceptable. All evaluation systems should ask about feedback, and if it is provided in a constructive manner. The policies should outline specific consequences for those who are unprofessional in their conduct and who make unhelpful and derogatory remarks to the trainees. These policies must be enforced.
Residents also worry about their finances, and with good reason. Many graduate from medical school with an average debt of around $110,000. At this point in their lives, many are also taking on marriage, family, car payments, and home mortgages. In a climate of decline in physician earnings overall, of having to work harder for much less, they worry about their future financial security.
Between me and my wife, we already have over $100,000 in loans. We overextended to buy a house. We have a disposable income of $150 to $200. Doesn't leave room for any kind of life.
Residents may benefit from access to a financial planner. They certainly will be among the top wage earners in the country, but most usually start with a large debt load, and they often don't want to put off the purchase of a nice car, a nice house. If married, with children, they may have other costs associated with daycare and education. Some residents need help learning how to draw up and live within a budget, how to prioritize, and how to reasonably delay some gratification rather than increase the strain which comes with increased indebtedness. Information about how to manage loans and loan repayment may also be helpful.
Remember, too, that the educational experience is critical to resident satisfaction. Time and time again, this comes up in surveys, but the learning experience is critically affected by the training experience. And this all ties in with the way they are treated, or unfortunately, mistreated. We know that we cannot eliminate all the discomforts associated with a residency training program, but a conscious effort at reducing a resident's sense of mistreatment should enhance their experience greatly. In addition to all these strains, some residents are highly vulnerable because of their idealism. It's important to listen carefully to them, to respond most effectively. This will not be accomplished in one short meeting. Before the resident leaves the room, set up another meeting. Give them a specific appointment. Additionally, enact policies that will reduce their sense of mistreatment and make them feel part of the system, not a cog in its wheel.
I went to talk to my advisor and explained how I'd gone to visit my dad in the nursing home. I was going to take him home for a weekend visit. What a warehouse. It stunk. Urine, feces, the smell was overpowering. My dad was a decorated vet. He served his country well and honorably. And then he had a stroke. And this is how he gets treated. By the medical profession. Put in diapers. Left to lie in bed. Smelling like an outhouse. I told her I didn't want any part of a profession that treated people like that. I was so furious. He died in the car on the way to my house. I told her I wanted to quit. I told her I wanted out. She really knew how to push my buttons. Nobody in my family ran from anything. I wasn't going to be the first. I couldn't live with that.
In addition to reducing the potential for stress and mistreatment as much as possible, program directors can help in other ways. Ensure that all residents are aware of stress management strategies. Encourage them to practice them on a routine basis. Also, the importance of self-care, exercise, and a healthful diet cannot be overemphasized. However, do not exclude the possibility that the resident may not have made the right career choice. In this case, referral to human resources, a career counseling resource, or the employee assistance program may be of help. It may be awkward for program directors, faculty, and even mentors to steer residents in other directions when so much time has already been invested, but it is important to do so if it is warranted. Be aware, though, that the resident may feel under pressure to please. Therefore, the advice might be better considered if it comes from a more neutral source.
Medicine offers a lot of potential careers. Any one of them is sure to be rewarding. It is our job to provide our residents with opportunities to figure out which one is the correct one for them.